Hello folks, this is Johnny again, and welcome to my more advanced-ish mastering tutorial. The first mastering tutorial I made in the metal production series, there I focus much more on a basic setup for mastering to give you a kind of kickstarter. But now I want to focus much more on principal ideas and train of thoughts you might go through when you're mastering. Now, because in mastering, it's much more important that you know exactly why you do what you do with every single step. Because just one parameter set badly can mess up everything, okay? So mastering can be a bit tricky. You have to be subtle but effective. In mixing, however, you can push things to the limit. You can make your compressors work really hard, you can EQ like crazy to make things sound right, but mastering is way more subtle. So you won't make EQ changes of more than 2 dB. And if you have to make more, then you probably need to tweak something in the mix. Also for compression, you won't really want to compress more than 2 to 3 dB per compressor. And also you won't go with a higher ratio than 2 to 1. So you see, you have to be discreet. And I will demonstrate this tutorial on a brand new song for the next album of my own project, which is called Fortiori. Now, if you want to check out our music, you'll find a link in the description. First thing we need to realize about mastering is it does not fix issues, it enhances. Because when you try to fix one specific issue from the mix, then you might start to actually make something else sound worse. So it doesn't really work out. This of course means that your mix should be as good as possible, so you don't run into any trouble in mastering. And going through this mastering tutorial, I'm also going to assume that the mix is ready for mastering, but I may still throw in some tips and tricks here and there where I can to make sure that the mastering will be easy on us and give us some better results. Now, next thing, when we talk about mastering, of course, we're also kind of talking about loudness. But we don't want to fight in the loudness war, so don't try to make things loud just for the sake of loudness. Rather, think of it as giving your mix more power, okay? When it's powerful enough, then just leave it. Even if the average loudness is not on par with commercial music, okay? It's totally fine. And you'll actually notice anyway, the more you practice mastering and the better you get at it, then you'll also notice that you can make things louder in the end. So don't force it. Just let it all naturally develop with your skills. And as I go through this tutorial and set up the master for this particular mix, please keep in mind, don't just copy paste what you see. You should apply the principles to your own stuff. Because you won't learn from copy pasting, you won't get to understand anything from it, and it won't help you. Trust me, I've tried it myself when I was a bloody noob, and in the end it only confused me even more. Just keep in mind, music production doesn't come to you overnight. It takes years of experience, and I myself still have a lot to learn. I'm just doing this for about, 4 years now or so. Now, if you mix your own music and you also want to master it yourself, the first thing you probably want to do is just give your mix a critical listen to make sure it's as good as possible. So focus on your low end, on your low mids, on your high mids, on your high end, or however you split those up. And then does the mix sound boomy on the low end, or is it weak? Is there some mud in the low mids, or does it sound empty and tinny? Are the high mids harsh, or is it lacking clarity? Does the high end make the whole mix sound muffled or bright? And then listen carefully to the frequency ranges of every single instrument and how they contribute to the mix as a whole, and how they interact with other instruments. So is everything nicely separated and clearly audible? For example, is the bass standing in the kicks away, or are they nicely separated? And yet, does everything still sound like a unit and like it belongs together? For example, does the bass nicely fit itself below the guitars? and so on. Or do the overheads and rhythm guitars and cleans and vocals kind of clash in the mid range? And then there are, of course, also volume balances and dynamics. So is some instrument too quiet or too loud? Are the drums unnaturally punchy or weak? Is the low end of the kick too tight or too lush? Do the drums peak high? And before you go into mastering, yeah, just tweak your mix well. And if all of that is already too tedious for you, then feel free to hire me for a mixing job. Just send me a message and we can talk about my charges and perhaps also details if it comes to that. So this should be enough for first part of this tutorial to give us a bit of a mindset. And then next time we'll get cooking with some EQing and whatnot. So cheers.